The next thing we're going to cover is setting X-axis live holders, for example, on the sub spindle. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit holder set. We're going to go down to our X spindle units. It doesn't really matter here for the spindle units because it's on center of the turret. We already know that dimension. And then we always have to touch off in X anyway. So we're going to just hit X spindle unit 1. We're going to hit input under data. Are you sure? Yes. So in this situation we have H1 and H2. So if you look here, it says H1 is for spindle 1 and H2 is for spindle 2. That's very important to notice because if we accidentally set it to H2 and we want to use it on spindle 1 and we try to call that tool in the program, it's going to give us an incorrect setting value and it's going to alarm out. So that's what would cause that. So in this situation, we want to use it on spindle 1 and spindle 2. So we're going to have to set it individually here. So for offset number on H1, we can go in offset number, we can use 17. And for H2, offset number, we'll use 27. So we'll hit input. So now that's ready to be touched off. After we set that, we're just going to hit escape to get out of this page. And now we're going to tab over. So once these are highlighted, you'll see the option pop up to be able to measure. If you don't see it, it's because you're highlighted in this page, and that's where you're going to see holder set. So that's one of the biggest questions I get asked is I can't find that. It's because you actually need to tab over to what you want to measure. So in this situation here, we're going to go to diameter, and we're going to touch off on the sub spindle in this situation. So we're going to come down here, we're going to go to diameter, and now when we hit measure set and we hold cycle start, you're going to notice that the machine moves into a separate position. So it moves into a safe position, but it's different than how it moves to the main. It's actually going to move the sub spindle up, and it's going to move it over so that we can easily touch off over there. So now you'll notice when we come over here to diameter and we move diameter, the turret is still going to move up and down the same way that it does on the main spindle. But when we go to longitude and we try to move, it's actually going to move the sub spindle now. The reason that it does this and doesn't move the turret is so that we can't accidentally touch this tool off on the main spindle. So we want this tool touched off on the sub. So now what we're going to do is we're going to position that tool so that we can touch off over here. Or in this situation, normally what I do is I will figure out the dimension for the OD of the spindle, and we can actually touch off with a piece of paper to the OD of the spindle. We can tell it what that OD is, and that's the easier way to touch off here, so I don't have to have a part over here or don't have to stick a bar in over here. Obviously you have to be very careful doing this, but it's a quicker, easier way to do it. So now after positioning the tool to touch off on a piece of paper, I know that the OD of the spindle is 5.625, and then we're going to add 6 thousandths for the paper. So we're going to come over here, and we're going to be touching off on diameter. So it's going to be 5.631. And now we're going to hit input, and it's going to put a number in here for our diameter. Now as far as longitude, the machine already knows that this is offset, so we don't need to touch off on longitude, and we're already touched off in core. So to confirm that, we can go into tool pattern. We can see what numbers it's automatically inputting here. In this situation, for Z, it's doing 1.811, and that's because 0 is set to the left side of the turret face, not the center. So it's automatically putting minus 1.8 or positive 1.811 in the turret to center line. And that's going to come out correct. And then as far as X, this is going to be the maximum tool stick out from the face of the turret. This is diametrical, not radial. And then Y, it doesn't need to put anything because Y0 is set to the center of the turret. So now that we've done this tool is already touched off. We only had to set one dimension here. And then we want to come over to tool type. We want to go into manual set, and we want to confirm that this is set to cross. Once you're touched off with this tool, if you're concerned that you're going to move the wrong direction and you're going to break that tool, an easy thing that we can do in this control is we can come over here, we can do Tur Retract. It's going to be turret 1, that's the turret we want to retract, and then X we want to retract first. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that 1 is selected. If we wanted to do Z1 first, we can do 2, but in this situation we want to do X. So once we hit turret retract, we can hold cycle start, and the turret is going to move back in X. And then once we do that, we can come back over here and we can do turret retract again. We can change that to 2 to move back in Z and hold cycle start again. and the turret will move back over there in Z.